I'm like most of you. I would probably prefer supporting cast. That's mostly what I did the little bit of when I did theater in high school and everything else. And I like supporting cast, help build up the lead character, that sort of thing. You might get some quippy one-liners. Also, like if it's a really bad movie, I feel like nobody remembers the supporting cast, but they put it on the main sometimes, so it's not on you. I don't have to own it. I was like, I wasn't the point of that one. So either way, all of these stories, any stories we have main characters, they have supporting cast, they have different things. Not so unlike all of our stories that we're going through here in our library series this summer. So we're in a series called The Library, in which we'll look at an Old Testament story every week, kind of retell it, look at it, and then see what can we do with this story today. And we've had main characters, we've had supporting characters. Today we are going to focus on what I would deem as the main character of this story. Today is Noah. We'll see Noah, the ark, the flood, fairly well-known story. You got the animals, 2 by 2, all that kind of stuff. Now, some, when you look at the story, will say it's all about God, God's judgment and what he did. Fair. Some might say it's all the people that ended up being killed by the flood or something like that, and I get all of that. But I really think Noah is who we should focus on. How Noah lived and what happened in the story. How he lived leads to where the story really goes. So we're going to focus on Noah today. So here's what I want you to think about, and this will relate to Noah, is that when we live right for God, it keeps us living right with God. So living right for God keeps us living right with God. Noah lived right for God, and he was allowed to keep living with God. So the flood story happens throughout Genesis chapters 6 through 8. We're going to look at a few different passages throughout those chapters to kind of see what happens and tell the story. We're going to start Genesis 6. Will be in verses 11 through 22. You can find it there in the Bibles on your table. Phones, tablets, all great. I will be in the NIV translation, and Kyle will have it going up on the screen behind me. So let's start with this. Genesis 6, verses 11 through 22. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I'm going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has the breath of life in it, everything on earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you. You will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird and every kind of animal and every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. Noah did everything just as God commanded him. We'll stop there. So God created the earth one way. He created it with love, with care. There was purity, there was obedience. And it's gone the complete opposite direction. The complete opposite way of how God intended earth to run and people to be. There's corruption, there's violence, sin is everywhere. Sin comes with the fall of Adam and Eve. We talked about that a few weeks ago, but now it has taken over. It has run rampant. So God tells Noah he's going to put an end to everything, to all people. And this is a big statement. God seems resigned to the fact that he has to uncreate creation. He has to undo it. Because sin isn't just felt by people. It's felt and grieved by God also. God saw he had created this, and it's not what it intended. It hurts, it grieves him, so he has to undo it. So he's going to spare Noah. Noah was the one living rightly. He's going to spare Noah. He doesn't start by just straight up telling Noah, hey, I'm going to not wipe you out. He just says, go build an ark and do this exactly how I tell you. So the assumption is God's going to protect Noah with this ark. And I want to think of the ark as I was looking it up a little bit more as a chest than as an actual ship. It was not designed to travel or sail somewhere, but more to float and protect. And he's given really elaborate instructions as to how to build it. It goes through the whole thing. And then God says he will bring these floodwaters. God is in control of the flood. Everything that is on earth, not in the ark, will die. And that's the point. And this is where we get away a little bit from the happy animals and 2 by 2 in the kid's story. Because the point of this is God's going to wipe everything out. But God does make a promise to Noah that there will be a covenant made between God and Noah after the flood. So Noah listens, and Noah obeys God. Noah is obedient to God, and that's a big piece here is obedience. A few years ago, about 2 years ago, I pulled the great civic duty of jury duty. And I sat in the jury room on one of our breaks, and we were in there for a little while, so I'm just kind of listening to people talk, and there's two guys start talking about actually training their dogs. One had just gotten a new dog. One's family had actually been dog trainers. And they're talking about all the different things that have to get done and the people they want the dog to interact with so that the dog behaves how they want, and about to get the dog comfortable and being obedient to the owner. But there might be times, they said they like taking them out in public, because there's times when there's just so much going around and so many people that the dog just gets overexcited and disobeys out of excitement. Or times when someone else says it's okay for the dog to do something. It's okay to jump up on me. But the owner says no. It's all about the dog being obedient to the owner. So we always need to be conscious that we are being obedient to God no matter what is going on around us. Acts 5:27 through 29 says, the apostles were brought in and made to appear before the Sanhedrin to be questioned by the high priest. We gave you strict orders not to teach in his name, he said. Yet you have filled Jerusalem with your teaching and are determined to make us guilty of this man's blood. Peter and the other apostles replied, we must obey God rather than human beings. Obedience to God before anything else. Now, this is not an okay to break laws, but that our obedience is focused on God and how we live. Now, there are many ways to disobey God. We can come up with a huge list. There's that outright disobedience, which is, I think, the first one we go to, that we are just doing things wrong, or maybe we don't care, or people just go against it because they want to do it, right? I'll do what I want even if I know it's wrong. That's not the direction we're going to go with disobedience today. There's two other ways I want to go. And the first one is disobedience in disarray. This is kind of like in that example when the dog just gets too excited by what's going on. When everything is crazy in life, there is so much going on, you can't hear yourself think, you're pulled in every direction, people want you to do all these different things, and it just feels crowded. And then we act and speak without really thinking about it. It just happens, right? We live in a 24/7 world, and it is filled with noise and things going on. So we act impulsive. So what I want to encourage all of us to do in those moments is slow down to speed up. Because the world moves fast, we know that. But slow down to speed up. Being with God is slowing down. Look for God and fill yourself with him during these crazy times. What you are filled with is what spills out. I think I've used this example before, but I love it. I have my coffee cup up here. It is filled with coffee. So if I'm standing here with my back turned and Kyle comes and gives me a forearm to the back, coffee is what's going to spill out of here because coffee is what's in the cup. If we aren't filled with God, when we are swayed or bumped or pulled or pushed or hit or whatever, something else will spill out of us. But if we're filled with God, God will spill out, right? We don't want something else to spill out and make a giant mess. Be filled with God so we can make an obedient, godly mess. Spill God all over the place when you're bumped or pulled. And we can slow down to make that happen. Slow down, because then we'll be even more ready for the craziness and speed of life. So that's when things feel like they're in disarray. Then there's disobedience in direction. This is kind of like somebody leading you or wanting you to do something that just doesn't sit right, or you know it's not right, or it doesn't honor God. And we have to think about, what are we going to do? Now, this might not be a direct, somebody looks at you and says, hey, why don't you just come and sin or defy God with me? Let's just go do that. It might not be that direct, but you're asked to do something that doesn't feel right, that doesn't sit right. Right? So we have to think about what to do there. And it might be, at times, we just need to say no to something. Just saying no to things. I grew up years ago, and we did DARE in elementary school. Many of you probably did the DARE program, right? Just say no to drugs or to alcohol. And they actually had you role play it. And I never enjoyed any of the role playing with that stuff. But it was actually really smart. Because in reality, when you're in the situation, saying no can be very difficult. But that's what it takes sometimes. Sometimes we have to say no to people. But you could think, okay, well, I'm supposed to say no, or maybe I got to say no, but I want to reach this person. I need to be with this person. Okay. Is there a way that maybe you can be with someone without acting like them or talking like them? And this takes discernment from God, takes time with being with God, and figuring out, hey, can I make this still work? So being with somebody, not talking or acting like them, right? You're out, and they want to go out to the bar. You're out with the bar with them. They're drunk, but you're not. You're there as a ride home or a safety net. Or you're out with a group, and maybe you're not participating in a conversation or redirecting a conversation that's going somewhere it shouldn't go. We can be obedient in a disobedient world. Others may not see it that way, but we can. So there's times in direction where we need to say no and not go a direction. And there's times where we just need to be really careful in going that way. Noah honored God. Noah followed God when nobody else would. He was obedient when nobody else was. The apostles in Acts were obedient to God when they were told not to be. So we want to be obedient to God, and that's kind of our first part. Let's keep going with this flood story. We're going to look at Genesis 7. This will be verses 13 through 24. On that very day, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark. They had with them every wild animal according to its kind, all livestock according to their kind, every creature that moves along the ground according to its kind, every bird according to its kind, everything with wings. Pairs of all creatures that have breath of life in them came to Noah and entered the ark. The animals going in were male and female of every living thing, as God had commanded Noah. Then the Lord shut them in. For 40 days the floods kept coming on the earth, and as the waters increased, they lifted the ark high above the earth. The waters rose and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. They rose greatly on the earth, and all the high mountains under the entire heavens were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of more than 15 cubits. Every living thing that moved on the land perished. Birds, livestock, wild animal, and all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind, everything on dry land that had the breath of life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out. People and animals and the creatures that move along the ground and the birds were wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those with him in the ark. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days. We'll stop there. So 8 people enter the ark with all the required animals. And then God, it says, shuts Noah in. And I like this, the way this seems, because God's taking the care that he promised. He shuts Noah in. Noah goes in and he closes the door. Noah's going to be protected from what was coming. God finalized that protection. And then God acted. He brought the floods, and the waters rise, and the ark floats like it's supposed to. And I can only imagine the scene, right? We see the water coming up, and it covers the ground. Then you see a small hill, and it covers the hill, and then a tree, and then a mountain, and you know what's happening under the water. Everything is being wiped away. Everything is being killed. But Noah's being protected while everything else is being wiped away. And it's not sailing. It's just God just protecting Noah right where he is. Protecting him right where he is. And everything gets wiped out. God undid what he had done in Genesis 1 and 2, except for Noah and those with him. Noah and his family had to have faith to get on the ark when everything else is wiped out. He doesn't know for sure what's going to happen, but he had faith. I feel like we love the idea of faith. There's a lot of songs with the title Faith. A lot of people, famous Faith Hill. I looked it up about the name. I was curious. According to the website, thebump.com, faith, the name, has English origin, meaning trust or devotion. It was popularized in the 17th century by the Puritans, along with other virtue names like hope, grace, and charity. From 1999 to 2012, it was in the top 200 baby names, and in 2023, it was number 242. So faith is a name. It's a song title. It is something that is a big deal. Faith was a huge deal for Noah, and it needs to be and remain a big deal for us. Hebrews 11:7 says, by faith, Noah, when warned about things not yet seen in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. By his faith, he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that is in keeping with the faith. So Noah acted in faith before he even saw what was happening. He builds the ark before the rain starts. He gets on the ark before the rain starts. He doesn't wait and be like, okay, is this actually going to happen? He does it before any of it. He did that with the faith that God would indeed bring his judgment and action, and that he would also be saved in the end. And I can't help but wonder if anybody else saw what's happening. Would they have wondered? Would they have even been willing to get on the ark if they were invited? But the fact is, Noah did because of faith. Faith is getting on the ark because we believe that God will act and God will protect. And we're told to believe in a lot of things, right? And not believe in a lot of things. Believe this, don't believe that. And it can depend on who you listen to, who you read, whatever your social media algorithm hits with you. Believe this study, that extra cup of coffee is super good for you. Go ahead and have it. No, believe this study that goes the complete opposite direction. Coffee's terrible for you. I wish we could just decide if my coffee is good for me or not. Believe this. Don't believe that. Believe this song is the best by this artist. No, believe this. We're pulled in so many different directions. And it makes things a little confusing. It makes things, it can be difficult to sort out what to believe and what to have faith in. Believe. I want to encourage you today to believe in yourself. But not like you might think. Not in the way maybe society would tell you to believe in yourself, that you're smart enough, strong enough, wealthy enough, or that you're hip, cool, or down enough, okay? Now, you're all those things. I'm sure you're all great. I know that. But I want you to believe in yourself as a follower of Jesus. Believe in yourself as a follower of Jesus. Believe that God is working in you and through you right now. And I believe that he is because you're here. You showed up today rather than going out for brunch or maybe to the beach if the weather gets better or something like that, because God's got something going through you. He's working in you if you're listening to this later because you decided to listen to this instead of your Spotify suggestions. God is working in you. Believe that God is working in you and through you, that he's on your side. God is actually on our side working with us. And people might say, no, he's not. Just listen to that flood story you just told. God killed a whole bunch of people and animals. Yeah. God brought his judgment, which he said he would do and he had to do because people weren't obeying and didn't have faith. God brought his judgment, but remember, those people weren't the main character. Noah is. Noah's the main character. Noah survived. Noah believed. Noah had faith in God and himself through God. Belief in anything else was behind that. So we want to have faith in ourselves as followers of Jesus. Now, inevitably, your faith will clash with life circumstances. This happens. And it may cause you to wrestle with your faith, to struggle with it, to have questions. I'm here to tell you that's okay. Right? Maybe you've been told you can't ever have questions, you can't wrestle. I don't think that's true. Part of wrestling with our faith is growing in our faith, but here's the big part. Keep God part of the struggle. Don't cut him out of that wrestling or struggle. Work through it with him. I can't imagine what would go through Noah's mind when he's told, hey, I'm going to protect you, but I'm going to wipe everything else out. Like, what goes through his mind? Did he wrestle or struggle with it? I would have. But whether he did or not, he still kept his faith in God. He built the ark. He got on it when it's possible nobody else would have, or when it didn't even make sense. But he did it, and he was protected because he kept his faith and his belief in God. So we're going to keep up our faith like Noah. Let's keep going. This will be Genesis 8. We are going to do 6 through 19. After 40 days, Noah opened a window he had made in the ark and sent out a raven, and it kept flying back and forth until the water had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove to see if the water had receded from the surface of the ground. But the dove could find nowhere to perch because there was water all over the surface of the earth. So it returned to Noah in the ark. He reached out his hand and took the dove, brought it back to himself in the ark. He waited 7 more days and again sent out the dove from the ark. When the dove returned to him in the evening, there in its beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. Then Noah knew that the water had receded from the earth. He waited 7 more days and sent the dove out again, but this time it didn't return to him. By the first day of the first month of Noah's 601st year, the water had dried up from the earth. Noah then removed the covering from the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was dry. By the 27th day of the second month, the earth was completely dry. Then God said to Noah, "Come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, all the creatures that move along the ground, so they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in number on it." So Noah came out together with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives, all the animals and all the creatures that move along the ground, and all the birds, everything that moves on land, came out of the ark one after the other. We'll stop there. So Noah kind of needs to see what's going on, right? It's been a minute. He's been in the ark. He's like, what's going on? So he sends out a raven and a dove, and they kind of fly around and find nothing. The raven finds no carrion, the dove nothing to perch on, anything like that. The water is still too high. Now, at this point, I'd be getting nervous. Noah had to wait and hope that God was going to come through. The flood part stopped, but the water hasn't receded enough to get out. So 7 days later, Noah tries again. The dove comes back now with a little olive leaf. But this is a small sign with a massive impact. Olive trees were known to be difficult to kill, but they would also re-sprout easily and quickly. So this would show something is coming back to life. The water is starting to go down enough for this to happen. In 7 more days, the dove goes out again, and it doesn't come back. It found what it needed to survive. Noah sees it's all dried up. He waits, and he waits until God tells him to come out, and then Noah has been saved. And this parallels the creation story, because at God's command, on God's timing, there's dry land, and there's animals and people, and God says, be fruitful and multiply. God saved Noah and his family and everything that was on the ark. But Noah had to wait. He had to wait, and he had to keep hoping in God. Waiting and hoping. hoping a plan will work. If you've ever made a plan that you're not sure about or you just want to work, I feel like fitness plans, diet, wellness plans are all kind of like this, right? We don't see immediate results. It's not a push a button and all of a sudden you're stronger or you got to the weight you wanted or your health is just magically better. It doesn't work like that. It takes time. It takes process. Like if I want to get stronger, I have to keep lifting weights and just hope that I will get stronger, to keep going, wait and hope. Noah had to keep hope in God that he would indeed be saved in the end from the flood. And it took time. Hope in the waiting. Hebrews 11:1 says, faith is the confidence in what we hope for and assurance of what we cannot see. Faith and hope tie together a lot. Noah had faith to get on the ark and had to keep hoping that God would come through. Part of hoping is waiting. What we're hoping for hasn't happened yet, or we wouldn't be hoping. If I hope my car starts, I'm hoping up until the point I turn the key and I find out. Prior to that, I'm in the waiting. I don't like the waiting part of hoping. But when it comes to God and hope in God, he's going to act on his timing. So we wait and we hope. Now, God wants us to also act on his timing. The flood ended. It still wasn't time for Noah to get out of the ark right away. He had to wait for God. So we can't rush God. We work on his timing. We act when God says act. We wait when God says wait. I don't know about you. I'm really good at flipping these. Right? Hey, it stopped raining. I'll just go outside. God's like, wait. I'm like, no, it's good. I can just go, right? No, wait. Or God says, hey, now go do this. Go act. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to need to pray about that for a little while longer. Maybe spend a little more time. Let's work this out. He's like, no, go. Either way, I like to flip them. But we act when God says act. We're supposed to wait when God says wait. And we'll focus on the waiting part today because that's what Noah had to do. When we hope in the waiting, it's super easy to get restless. Really easy to do. To think about, okay, this hasn't happened yet. Why might God not come through? Did I do something wrong? What could I have done better? Could I have added to this to assure the result that I wanted or to change the result that might or might not come? So we get restless and we get anxious in it. But part of hoping on God is just waiting in God. What we should do, what Noah kind of did, what I want to encourage us with is to look for God in the present even when we're waiting. Send out that dove like Noah did. He wasn't testing God by sending out the dove. Wasn't trying to take matters into his own hands, but he was looking to see where God was in that time. Remember, we have hope in God saving us for eternity. That dove coming back with nothing in the beak, it might look like a time when we're here and it's like, man, everything's kind of bleak right now. There's illness or there's pain or there's trauma or there's disappointment and life is just hard. So we have to wonder, is God really going to come through? But we keep looking for God because he is still there. We believe he's still there and we have hope in his eternal promise. And then eventually that dove brings back something small. Don't miss the small things God is doing in your life. The phone calls or the text from somebody. The coworker that says hi to you that never seems to see you. These little things. God shows his love and his care even while we're waiting and we're hoping. So keep hoping in the waiting. When God says wait, and he will say wait, he might say wait more than he says act. See the waiting time as hoping time and not wasting time. That waiting time is hoping time. Exercising hope is not wasting anything. You might be told otherwise, that just waiting and sitting idle is wasting time, but with God, it is not. Noah had hope in the waiting, and God came through in that hope. Our hope in God is not unfounded. It's grounded in God being who he's always been and who he'll always be. And we'll get a little bit about that here in this last section for today, which is Genesis 8:20 through 22. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of all the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart, never again will I curse the ground because of humans. Even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood, never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. Noah knows he's safe. He gets off the ark, and his first thought goes to God. He builds an altar and makes an animal sacrifice. This is common, customary for Noah's day. And the sacrifice created a pleasing aroma to God. It satisfied God. It made God happy. It was worthy of God, and it was accepted. So God promises he will not do what he just did again. He will not wipe out the entire earth again in judgment. Whatever happens, can be overcome with God. Day and night, seed harvest, heat, cold, none of that will cease. God is still going to reign on heaven and on earth, but he's not going to wipe it all away in judgment. Noah's sacrifice, after being saved, led to God's promise that carried on. The promise. Who has seen the great 1997 classic movie Liar, Liar? Yeah, all right. Most hands go up. There we go. If you know the story, then Jim Carrey is a lawyer, and basically the premise is he lies to everybody about anything and everything, including his family. And it's his son's birthday. He gives his son baseball gifts, right? Baseball stuff for his birthday, except it's actually his secretary who bought it for him. And he promises his son, after your birthday party tonight, I'll play with you. But then he doesn't show up to the birthday party, which leads to his son making the wish when he's blowing out the candles, I wish that for a day my dad couldn't tell a lie. And then we have the movie. It happened because he broke a promise to his son. Nobody likes having a promise broken. God made a promise to Noah, a promise that we still hold on to, and it is one that will not be broken. The sacrifice that Noah offered after he got off the ark led to a promise from God. Now, we don't have to offer sacrifices in the same way Noah did, but we still hold that promise because Jesus came to be our sacrifice. Jesus' death was accepted by God as a sacrifice for us. God promises us that he won't leave us. He won't abandon us or forsake us. He will be there for us, love us, have compassion for us, give us truth, and save us, and that promise remains. That promise is the same. There's a song by the artist Corey Asbury called The Promise is the Same. And throughout the song, he wrestles with different things and different struggles. He says he had to ask for forgiveness so many times, say sorry so many times. But through all of that, God isn't unresponsive or distant. God is there, and the promise is the same. I want all of us to hold that promise today, and specifically this part, the consistency of God's promise, that it's consistent and it's the same and it doesn't waver or change. Now, if you're somebody that loves spontaneity and to fly by the seat of your pants, that's okay. God will still probably make you do loop-de-loop sometimes, but still hold to the consistency of God's promise. If you're like me and you love consistency and routine and things just being kind of straight, we'll still get those loops from God, but we also have the consistency of God's promise. It will not waver or change. We need God's promise to be consistent, and it is. We need God's promise to be true, and it is. We need God's promise to never fail. It won't. Hold tightly to it. God made a promise to us, and he will keep it. He wants us to keep living rightly for him. Noah did it, and he did it when it was hard and others weren't. So we should live like Noah, in obedience to God, even in a disobedient world. We live in faith, even when we're told to believe 100 different things or not believe 100 different things, believe and have faith in God. And hope in God even in the waiting. There's a lot of waiting that happens in life. Keep hoping that God will come through. Draw near to God in the waiting. And then hold tightly to the promise God gave that he will come through, that he will save us. He won't leave us or abandon us. He will save us. That promise doesn't get broken. Hold that. Keep living rightly for God, and that will keep us living rightly with God. Let's pray. God, I thank you for today and the story of Noah, God. A classic story, but I just pray that we can take an example from Noah and how he lived his life. In the midst of everything else, God, that he was focused on you. He lived rightly for you, and God, you protected him. God, you cared for him. So God, I pray that we would focus on that, living for you, living with you, living rightly by you, and that we would hold to the promise that you gave Noah and that promise that we still have, that you will save us, and that you are there for us. So God, again, I pray that you would help us to continue to live for you and with you, God. In your name.